So let's begin with another chapter of history, that is nationalism in India. Now, when we talk about nationalism in India, you need to understand that the chapter itself is uh, like a trail of various events which happened one after the other. The first thing that was there when we start with the chapter is about First World War, and from there the nationalism feelings started coming up. It is like nationalism is not something that is as a concept will immediately emerge. It will be as a sequence of various events which will happen, and consequently the result will come out as a feeling of nationalism, and that will force you to work towards the nation. So the first incidents from where we can, of course, with the perspective of class 10th curriculum, we can mark it as First World War. That was somewhere between 1914 to 1918. Now, that was also the time where we saw the emergence of a new leader like Gandhiji, who came back to India in 1915 from South Africa, and he started with the movement of Satyagraha, non-cooperation, and many more to come in the due course. First of all, during the First World War, the conditions we need to understand what sufferings were there with the people of India that actually forced them to go against the system to some extent. The first one was the price of essential commodities were increasing because of the crop failure. That was a reason, natural reason, but that was also because the war was going on, the commitments of the government was increasing towards the army side, and so it may not work that time. So that time the prices of essential commodities were very much high. We were talking about 1914 to 1918, the time of First World War. Another thing was because the defense expenses of the government were increased, more money was being spent to army and the war, so taxes were increased because ultimately government will get money from taxes only. So the taxes were increased, and finally the forced recruitment were there. Now understand that the term forced recruitment also comes as a technical term in this chapter, where you may be asked to explain what is the meaning of forced recruitment. So for a people of a particular age, especially the youth, were forced to be the part of British army. That is the main point, not the Indian army. They were not serving Indian army. We were not having any such army that point of time. So forced recruitment was there in India, British army, so that they can fight for Britain in the First World War. So overall, these three things were the high prices of essential commodities, increase in taxes because of the defense expenses, and forced recruitment. Finally, there was a distrust in people for the British government. Now, that same time, in somewhere in 1915, as I told you, Mahatma Gandhi entered in the scenario, and he propagated the idea of Satyagraha. Now, when we say Satyagraha, it is actually, when you divide, it is Satya plus Agrah. Satya means the truth. Agrah means to request somebody to follow. So, Satyagraha means truth plus Agrah means, here the meaning what is given, dictionary meaning is to hold firm onto the truth that you feel is the truth. So if I say that I believe on a particular thing as a truth, I will try to convince people to believe on that. Now, according to Mahatma Gandhi, his ideology was that oppressors should be persuaded to see the truth. Means if somebody is following the oppressive tendencies, like Britishers were trying to oppress India that time. So people should not go with violence, should not go with reactions. Rather, they should try that Britishers should feel that they are doing something wrong with Indians. That was the idea behind Satyagraha. Satya was, the truth was that Indians were being oppressed and Britishers were the oppressors. So Mahatma Gandhi tried that we should take it in a way that oppressors like the Britishers should understand that what wrong is going on with Indians and they should make it better. First experiment of Satyagraha he did in South Africa, which was against racism, like blacks and whites. That time that issue was going on there and he was a part of that, and after that he came back to India and started here. Now here there are three major experiments that can come as your important question also. One was in Champaran, Bihar, where he fought for the justice for tenants of Champaran, and as a result government passed an act in favor of the peasants of Champaran, means the peasants who were taking the land as a tenant and working on that land, they will also get a share in profit on the production. That was Champaran, Bihar in 1916. The second experiment was Kheda, Gujarat in 1917, where Gandhiji asked the people not to pay the taxes due to the failure of crops. Since the crops failed in that year and peasants were not having money to pay the taxes, so if they'll pay the taxes, they will not be able to survive, or otherwise they will again get into the trap of loan. So Gandhiji said without violence, without reactions, just simply not to pay the taxes, and the reason was the failure. Of course, it went as on a movement, it was not so easy, and finally government again declined and the payment of taxes was deferred for next year, means the peasants were allowed that they can pay the taxes next year. The other one was Ahmedabad, Gujarat in 1918, where mill workers went on a strike and their demand was raised to pay. And but here again, it was not so successful as the previous two. Now, what we discussed in that short discussion is that Satyagraha was an ideology which was propagated by Mahatma Gandhi. Satyagraha was actually a process through which we try that the oppressor should see the truth and should behave accordingly rather than going for violence or any sort of reaction. Three movements Mahatma Gandhi initiated in India, that was Champaran, Khera and Ahmedabad. Expected questions that may come out of this small discussion is that the meaning of Satyagraha we already discussed. Idea of Satyagraha as propagated by Gandhiji, again meaning plus a bit of ideology of Mahatma Gandhi should be added in this answer. When we are talking about the social and economic condition of India during the First World War, that will be of course the increase in taxes because of the warfare. Then crop failure was there, so essential commodities prices were very high, and the forced recruitment. These three will come in terms of social and economic condition of India during the war. And finally the three movements in India that Mahatma Gandhi initiated, that was Kheda, Ahmedabad and Champaran. So these are the major questions that can come from your Satyagraha concept. Thank you.